My phone buzzed in my pocket, the sudden vibration cutting through the noise of the meeting. It had been a long week, Friday at last, and this was the final meeting. It felt like the 10th one this month, but the expansion to Malaysia was a big deal, and I was in charge of training the new team. We were all exhausted, but the end was in sight. I discreetly pulled out my phone to check the caller ID, unregistered number. I slipped it back into my pocket and tried to focus on the conversation with my team. The project had faced its fair share of problems. The biggest one was the resistance from locals in the target district. Apparently, we were building near a shrine, some kind of sacred site. I wasn't sure of the specifics, and to be honest, I didn't care. We had the permits from the local government. That was all I needed to know. The phone rang again. This time, I had left it on the conference table. The screen lit up, showing the same unregistered number. I glanced at it, hesitated for a moment, then hit ignore. The meeting dragged on for another hour before we finally wrapped things up. As the room cleared out, I packed up my notes, ready to head home and forget about work for the weekend. Just as I was about to leave the building, the phone rang for the third time. The same number. I picked up. At first, there was nothing but silence. Then, after a few seconds, I heard something. A faint noise, almost like whimpering. It was distant, but unmistakable, like a child or a woman crying. I strained to hear more clearly, my stomach tightening. "Hello," I said, my voice sounding more uncertain than I'd intended. There was no response. Then suddenly, a scream erupted through the phone, piercing, raw, the unmistakable sound of a woman in agony. My blood turned cold, and without thinking, I hung up and switched off the phone, my hands shaking. My heart raced as the echo of that scream replayed in my mind. I stood there, staring at the blank screen, my mind racing. Was it some sick prank? Should I report it to the police? It didn't seem real, more like a scene out of a horror movie than something that would happen in real life. I told myself it was just a prank. People mess with you all the time, right? I tried to shake it off, but the unease stayed with me all evening. That night, around midnight, I woke up to a sound. It was faint at first, a rhythmic tapping coming from the bathroom. The noise was slow, deliberate. Tap, pause, tap, pause. My pulse quickened as I sat up in bed listening. The house was silent except for that sound, as if it was the only thing alive in the darkness. I got up, every step toward the bathroom filled with a growing sense of dread. I pushed the door open slowly, heart thudding in my chest, and flipped on the light. Nothing. The bathroom was empty. I exhaled shakily and laughed at myself, turning off the light as I stepped back into the hallway. But as the light flickered out, my breath caught in my throat. Standing in the doorway was a silhouette. A woman. I stumbled back, gasping as her figure remained perfectly still, blocking the exit. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Just stood there, a dark shape against the dim glow from the hallway. I screamed, my legs giving out as I collapsed backward, hitting the floor hard. My head smacked against the tile, pain shooting through me. My vision blurred, and then everything went dark. When I woke up, the morning light was streaming through the windows. My head throbbed, but the real pain was in my chest, an aching dread that made me question whether what I'd seen was real or some hallucination from the fall. The silhouette, the scream, the tapping, all of it haunted me. I arrived at the office that morning in a daze, my mind still replaying the events of the night. The world outside looked unchanged, normal. But I felt like something had shifted, something unnatural. When I reached my desk, I sat down heavily and immediately drafted an email to my CEO. I need a reassignment. I didn't even care how it looked or if it hurt my career. I had to get out, away from Malaysia, away from that shrine. Hours passed, and I tried to push the experience to the back of my mind, tried to pretend everything was fine. But just as I was about to head home for the day, my phone buzzed again. I stared at the screen. Unregistered number. My breath caught in my throat. Against my better judgment, I answered, the phone trembling in my hand. There was silence. No tapping this time. No whimpering. Then, faintly, the same woman's voice that had screamed the night before spoke, her words barely more than a whisper. You shouldn't have built there. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I turned the phone off again, but it didn't matter. I knew deep down that this wouldn't stop. That something had followed me. Diane sat in the dimly lit phone operator's booth. The call center was nearly empty at this late hour, and the hum of fluorescent lights above her added a dull weight to the air. It was the graveyard shift, her least favorite, but at least the quiet meant she could drift into her own thoughts between the infrequent calls. The phone rang, jolting her back to attention. A number appeared on the screen. Blocked. Diane sighed, reaching for her headset. She had gotten used to prank calls, especially around this time of night. Teenagers with too much time on their hands. Operator, how may I assist you? She said, her voice professional but weary. At first, there was only silence. Not the usual static or muffled breathing. Just silence, like the other end of the line was a void. Diane was about to hang up when she heard it, a whisper, faint and chilling, as if someone were inches from her ear. I'm inside. Diane froze. Her eyes darted around the room, but nothing was out of place. The stale air seemed suddenly too thick, pressing against her skin. She shook off the momentary unease, her voice steely as she spoke into the receiver. Excuse me? More silence. The tension gnawed at her nerves, crawling down her spine. The room felt smaller, darker. She glanced toward the doorway, leading out to the long, narrow hall of the empty office building. The feeling of being alone was no longer comforting. It was suffocating. I said, I'm inside. The voice whispered again, closer this time, almost tangible. Her pulse quickened. The voice was slow, deliberate, like someone savoring each word. She disconnected the call, her breath uneven as she pushed away from the desk. It was just a prank. Some sick joke, she told herself, but the thought brought no comfort. The phone rang again. Her heart skipped. The same number. Blocked. She hesitated but answered. Operator. Did you think I was lying? The voice was colder this time, seeping into her bones. Look behind you. Diane shot up from her chair, spinning around, her eyes frantically searching the dark corners of the room. Nothing. Just the empty cubicles bathed in the sterile blue light from the exit sign at the end of the hall. She held the phone to her ear, the silence on the line stretching like a noose around her neck. I'm not playing these games, she snapped, hoping her voice sounded braver than she felt. This is harassment. The line went dead. Her fingers hovered over the phone, shaking. She glanced behind her again, her paranoia now fully awake. The shadows seemed deeper, and every creak of the building felt like a footstep. She couldn't help but wonder, was someone really here? The phone rang once more. This time she let it ring. Each shrill tone made her skin crawl until finally it stopped. Her breath slowed, but only for a second. A notification popped up on her screen. Voicemail. One new message. Diane's fingers trembled as she navigated to the voicemail, her mind racing. It couldn't be. It had to be another prank, another mind game. But when she hit play, the message was nothing but that same soft whisper. I'm inside. She bolted from the booth, nearly tripping as she ran down the hall, the long corridor stretching endlessly before her. The fluorescent lights flickered erratically above, casting jagged shadows along the walls. Every echo of her footsteps felt too loud, as if they weren't hers alone. She reached the elevator, slamming the button repeatedly, her breath ragged. Come on, come on. The The phone in her pocket buzzed. Her shaking hand fumbled as she pulled it out. It was a text from an unknown number. I'm getting closer. The elevator doors opened and she rushed in, slamming the button for the lobby. The doors creaked shut, and for a moment, the claustrophobic silence inside the elevator felt safer than the vast emptiness of the office. She leaned against the wall, trying to steady her breathing. The text buzzed again. I'm right behind you. The overhead lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then they went out. Her phone slipped from her hands as she felt it, an icy breath on the back of her neck, the faintest sensation of fingers brushing against her skin. She didn't dare move, her body paralyzed with terror, but she could feel it there. Right behind her. Waiting. The whisper returned, impossibly close. I told you, Diane, I'm inside. The doors dinged open into the lobby, but no one ever walked out. Diane was gone. I've always been drawn to the idea of helping people, of being a calming presence in times of crisis. So when I landed a job at the 112 emergency call center, I felt like I'd found my calling. Little did I know that it would lead me down a path of unspeakable horror. 7 months into the job, I was promoted to team lead, a testament to my dedication. But my last shift as a call agent would be one I'd never forget. The night that stole my voice. The 112 call center wasn't your typical office. Hidden on a dirt road, surrounded by a high fence and a veil of overgrown trees, it was a place shrouded in secrecy. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed relentlessly, casting an eerie glow over the rows of cubicles. As the midnight hour approached, the call volume dwindled. It was just me and 4 other agents on duty, along with a skeleton crew of technicians and the operations manager. Suddenly, a sharp ring pierced the quiet from Sarah's cubicle. 112. Please, what is your emergency? Sarah's voice wavered, a tremor of fear creeping into her words. I watched in growing alarm as her face contorted in agony, her hands flying to her head. With a sickening thud, she collapsed to the floor, blood oozing from her ears and mouth. A wave of terror washed over me as Hassanat answered the next call. Her fate mirrored Sarah's, her body jerking violently before crumpling lifelessly to the ground. Panic seized the remaining agents. I tried to reach the operations manager, but the line remained dead. Then, my headset rang. Frozen with fear, I stared at the blinking light, the sound echoing through the silent call center like a death knell. A chilling whisper filled my ears. You cannot escape. We're coming for you. I slammed my headset down, my heart pounding in my chest. This was no ordinary emergency. It was something far more sinister. With trembling hands, I set my workstation to D&D and fled the call center, dragging the other 2 agents with me. We barricaded ourselves in the quiet room, my mind racing to find a way out of this nightmare. I texted the operations manager, detailing the horrific events, but as the hours ticked by, my hope dwindled. The arrival of paramedics brought a fleeting sense of relief, but the underlying dread remained. I knew the danger wasn't over, that something evil still lurked within the call center. As the paramedics tended to my injured colleagues, I gave my report to the operations manager. He listened intently, his face pale, but when I mentioned the menacing voice, he abruptly changed the subject, urging me to leave out that detail in my written report. A cold realization settled upon me. I was alone, trapped in a web of terror, my voice stolen by an unseen force. The next morning, I submitted my resignation, my silence a testament to the horrors I'd witnessed. To this day, I haven't uttered a single word, the memory of that fateful night forever etched into my soul.